My name is Joshua, and I'm not entirely sure if I chose this life or if it chose me. Regardless, it hasn't always been smooth sailing. Growing up on our farm and being part of the future farmers of America, it felt like I was meant to be here. I met my wife, Jessica, during our sophomore year at ISU. Coming from farming backgrounds, we shared a deep understanding of the challenges and hardships that come with the territory. Beyond farming, we bonded over our shared desire to travel and our love for cheesy comedies with inappropriate humor. After earning my agricultural degree from Iowa State University, I thought I had everything figured out. Jessie studied accounting and finance with the goal of making our farm profitable so we could afford things previous generations couldn't. Our plan was straightforward: marry after college, work on my parents' farm to save up for travel, and then settle down and start a family. However, life had other plans. The first curveball came with my father's sudden death 15 years ago. He passed away while working on the farm, leaving me to take over. We put our dreams of travel on hold and focused on running the farm. For years later, Jessie and I welcomed our first child. Despite her initial reluctance to embrace farm life fully, she eventually adjusted, and we had 3 more children over the years. Fast forward to the present day, and I found myself in a bind. Our combine broke down during a crucial time in the harvest season. Desperate for help, I reached out to Tommy, but he could only send someone out the next evening due to a backlog of work caused by recent rainstorms. Despite the setback, we remained determined to get through this challenging period and keep our farm running. I understand, Tommy. We still have 170 acres left, and if we can't finish, we'll be in a tough spot financially, I explained, feeling the weight of the situation. Tommy was in the same boat as the rest of us, just trying to make ends meet. Please send someone over as soon as you can. I'll do my best, Tommy replied, then hesitated before bringing up the parts bill. Hey, Josh, any chance you can make a payment on that parts bill? I'm running low on parts until we clear last spring's debt. Damn, Tommy, let me talk to Jessie when I get home. How much do I need to pay to keep us going until we finish harvesting? I knew our savings were dwindling. We took a risk this year by planting more crops to make up for last season's losses. It wasn't typical for us to plant all 372 acres at once, but we went for it. Unfortunately, the extra expenses drained our reserves, and now both combines were out of commission. Jessie warned me about the risks, but we were hoping for a big payoff until the last storm hit. $5,000 should do it, Josh. I'll see what I can do, Tommy. Thanks, man. I ended the call and realized it was getting late. There was no point staying out here with a broken machine, so I decided to head home. Putting on my co-op ball cap, I climbed into my truck and drove back, hoping Jessie would understand my early return. As I drove through the fields, I watched the dust clouds billow under my 18-year-old farm truck. I looked forward to seeing Jessie and the kids. I hadn't spent much time with them in the last 72 hours. We'd been working nonstop to get the corn in, which explained my exhausted state. I wasn't eager to revisit the argument Jessie and I had put on hold before harvest, but it seemed inevitable. I remembered her words clearly. Josh, there has to be more to life than just surviving from season to season, Jessie had said, pushing me once again to consider selling the farm. The city buyers were back, trying to persuade us to part with our way of life. Jessie, farming is all we know, I argued wearily. What else would we do? I'm good with numbers, and you could finish your engineering degree, she suggested, as she always did. I was only a few credits away from a double major in agriculture and engineering when I graduated. At one point, I entertained the idea of designing farm equipment for a big company. I know it's not as free as farming, she continued, but it's stable, and then we could start checking things off our bucket list. Over the past few years, Jessie's discontent with our lifestyle grew more rapidly than our crops. I struggled to comprehend her perspective. After all, farming was what we both knew and agreed to. Why entertain the offers from corporate farms? Jessie, that ship sailed a long time ago. Josh, with what they're offering, we could clear our debts, get you back into school, and still have enough for a small house in town. I can support us until you graduate. We could make it work. Jessie, I'm exhausted from this debate. Let's focus on getting this crop in, and then we can revisit this. My words were intended to put an end to the discussion. That was 2 weeks ago, right before she attended that 2-day tax seminar. Since then, the harvest began, and we hadn't revisited the conversation. As I pulled into the yard, a sense of unease washed over me. Our 4 kids were gathered by the equipment barn. Mary, the eldest at 10, was overseeing her younger siblings while 2-year-old Susie was contained in a makeshift pen. Jesse's car was nowhere in sight. Exiting the truck, I braced myself for the flurry of children rushing toward me. "Mary, where's Mama?" "I don't know. She left a while ago and said she'd be back before you." Relief flickered across her face. She seemed glad to have a parent home with them. "Okay, sweetheart, watch over your siblings for a moment. I'll see if I can find out where Mama went, all right?" "Okay, Daddy." Mary accepted her task and ushered Jimmy and Carol back to their toys. I scooped up Susie, only to be greeted by a pungent odor. I was upset. Jesse had never neglected our children like this before, so I was worried. A search of the house yielded no clues about her whereabouts. Then I noticed a folded card on the stove. Opening it, I read the message inside. "Josh, I can't continue like this. I've met someone, and I'm leaving. Jessica." Checking our bank records revealed that Jesse had withdrawn most of our funds in cash and transferred the remainder to a new account. There was also a recent debit card transaction at a nearby hotel conference center. Suspecting she might still be there, I changed Susie's diaper, gathered the kids, loaded them into the truck, and headed to town. Liam. I enjoyed working on contracts in these rural states. My CPA license came in handy as I traveled from hotel conference room to conference room, explaining how the new tax codes applied to local farmers. The woman wasn't bad in bed either. Typically, one of those bored farmers' wives, weary of the daily routine and rural life, eager to indulge in a few hours of passion with a handsome stranger. That's how I encountered the stunning woman sitting across from me, sipping on a glass of expensive whiskey, which I'll conveniently charge to my work expenses. This one, Jess, stood out among the rest. She was slightly older than my usual type, but farming had kept her body in fantastic shape. Her curves were enticing, her breasts ample and nicely supported. She was an easy target for my charms, especially during the first session of my 2-day seminar. I dazzled her with photos of my recent travels to Paris, London, and Amsterdam. I spun tales of her mundane life on the farm, her husband's inability to meet her needs, and how she deserved someone who truly appreciated her. After a few drinks, she willingly joined me in bed on the first night of the conference. I recalled how her sundress accentuated her feminine figure, clinging to her slender waist while floating gracefully around her as we danced on the small floor. "You should come away with me," I suggested on our last afternoon together a week ago. "I'll be passing through town next Thursday after my seminars. Be there, and let's embark on an adventure." I'm not sure why I proposed such a thing. I don't usually take things to that extent. But she was irresistible between the sheets. I let my desires cloud my judgment. "I can't. I have a husband and kids here." "I can't leave them," she replied nervously, confessing that she had never cheated on her husband before, not even during college. "You deserve better, darling." "He can't offer you what I can," I insisted, sweetening the deal. "Next month, I'm heading to Galveston. Join me, and we'll take a 3-day cruise to the Caribbean. Have you heard of Cozumel?" I saw the longing in her eyes. It was wanderlust, the need for freedom and exploration. I knew she didn't love me and probably never would. And even if she did, I had no idea how I would explain Jess to my wife, who was actually joining me on that cruise. I planned to enjoy this affair for a couple of days while completing my work, then leave her behind in the city when I returned home. She only had my name, she didn't even know where I was from. The risk was minimal. "I'm sure your husband will understand that he can't fulfill your needs or desires," I reassured her, watching as her tension eased, indicating her surrender. "I can't abandon my kids." "What about them?" Her concern for her children was evident. "Just leave them with your husband until you settle in. I'll assist you," I lied smoothly. She hesitated, contemplating the implications of leaving her family. But it's the harvest. It wouldn't be fair to leave my husband right now. She was hesitant, and I knew pushing further might jeopardize my plans. I approached my travel case and retrieved what looked like a delicate Japanese scarf, offering it to her. I bought this in Japan and have been waiting for the perfect woman to give it to. Take it as a reminder of me. If you're up for an adventure, be here Thursday around 3. We'll spend the night and set off together the next day. As she accepted the scarf, I discreetly removed the tag from the local import company. I'd need to find another gift for my daughter later. I wondered if Jess would actually show up. Arriving at the Holiday Inn on Thursday, I spotted Jess by her car, sipping on a Diet Coke. I hurried her into my room and then to the bar, where we shared a light dinner and drinks before retiring for the night. I'm not one to give up easily, but I'm tired of putting my dreams on hold. I want to live life to the fullest, to explore the world. I crave adventure. I'm ready for whatever comes next, she confessed to me. I suppressed a laugh, turning it into a smile. If only she knew what I had planned for her. Her only adventure would be picking up the pieces of her life. It wasn't my problem that she fell for my deceit. Suddenly, her expression changed as she glanced towards the door, her face draining of color. I followed her gaze in the bar's mirror and saw a man who seemed out of place, filling the doorway with his presence. His eyes scanned the room until they settled on us, his wife. The tension in the air was palpable as he approached, his rugged appearance and worn clothes contrasting with the hotel's surroundings. He stood next to me, his imposing figure casting a shadow over me. Frozen in my seat, I felt my heart sink as I realized the gravity of the situation. If only I had known she was married to such a man, I would have pursued someone else. In that moment, my life flashed before my eyes. Joshua, I knew I was in the right place when I saw her car parked outside. I pulled up in front of the lobby and asked little Mary to watch her siblings for a moment. I didn't plan to be gone long. The receptionist informed me that there was no registered guest under the name Jessica Anderson. She gestured towards the bar, mentioning that it was busier than usual. Stepping into the bar, I scanned the room and spotted Jess sitting at a table with a disheveled man in a worn suit. Making my way through the crowd, I could feel the tension building around me. Jess noticed me as I approached, and I could see the color drained from her face. I stopped beside her new companion, struggling to contain my anger. So, this is the guy you think is better than me? I gestured towards the pale bookworm sitting across from us. I observed her for a moment before continuing, "You've got terrible timing, Jessie. You left the kids alone and hungry, the crops aren't in yet, and here you are flirting with some smooth-talking guy. Not a good time for this." Her back stiffened as she met my gaze squarely. "It's never going to be a good time. I've wasted 15 years of my life on you and this damn farm." "I'm tired of playing second fiddle to dirt," she retorted, her tone heating up. "At least Liam knows how to treat a woman and understands what someone like me needs, unlike you with your empty promises." I was taken aback by the bitterness in her words, sharp and cutting. There was no point in trying to convince her to come back home. In fact, I wasn't even sure if I wanted her back. "I noticed you withdrew most of the money from our farm account," I began, watching her nod in acknowledgement. "Did you forget we're an LLC, a business where you're an officer?" "What does that matter?" she snapped. "I deserve that money as much as you do, and I need it for my new life. If that money isn't back in the farm account by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning," I issued my ultimatum, "I'll call the police and press embezzlement charges against you. You can't just take the farm's money." I wasn't entirely sure if I could do that, but Jessie seemed to know enough about financial laws to be intimidated. "Give me the cash you withdrew now." I held out my hand. She reluctantly handed me a stretched white bank envelope from her purse. I felt a sense of relief knowing it might be enough to get Jimmy started on the combine in the morning. Placing a hand on Liam's shoulder, I said, "Good luck, son. You'll need it." With that, I turned and left, ignoring Jessie's loud protests as she yelled insults at my back, drawing the attention of everyone in the bar. Liam, the big man, exited the bar, looking somehow smaller than when he arrived. A bit defeated, I thought. I glanced at the source of his troubles sitting across from me and signaled the waitress for another round. But it didn't matter. The whiskey no longer tasted smooth, it burned going down. I found myself going through the motions. Step by step, Jess and I left the dimly lit bar and followed the dimly lit hallway to my room. She looked at me as she let her sundress fall, standing there in her aging beauty. She still seemed interested, but I had lost any interest I once had in her. Without uttering a word, I grabbed my unpacked bag and made my way to the door. Jess stared at me with disbelief as I paused at the threshold, taking one final glance at her. It was time to cut my losses. As I closed the door behind me, leaving her in tears, I knew I would handle my work remotely. Hours later, after returning the rental and rearranging my airline ticket, I was on my way home. Joshua, the following days passed in a blur. My cousin and mother stepped in to take care of the kids. Tommy received his payment, and my combine was back in action, harvesting away. I spent countless hours in the cab of that unit, contemplating the demise of my marriage and reflecting on my missteps. It dawned on me that I may have misjudged Jessica's longing for adventure and aspirations beyond motherhood, farming, and bookkeeping. My mother had a different perspective. She was wrong to abandon her family like that, my mother scolded me, but she wasn't wrong about selling this place. I looked at her incredulously. Farming is our legacy, Mom, it's our tradition, I argued. No, Josh, it was your grandfather's and your father's, and it led them both to early graves. It wasn't meant to be your future. It's your past. You have 4 children to raise. You need to look forward, not backward. Even my own mother was urging me to sell. Since confronting Jessie at the bar, she had been staying with a friend outside of town. Her supposed real man abandoned her, leaving her stranded at the hotel. Our temporary custody agreement had the kids with me, and Jessie had visitation rights, which she rarely used. The harvest barely covered our expenses for the year. The divorce was finalized swiftly, custody arrangements remained unchanged, assets were divided, and offers for the farm increased as neighboring farms were making deals to expand. I waited for the divorce decree, agreed on a price, and bid farewell to farming. We relocated to a small place near the college. With my mother's assistance, I completed my design degree. I juggled studies and parenting, and while I dated occasionally, I embraced being single for a while. Upon graduating, I joined a startup aftermarket manufacturer. We may not have had high salaries, but stock options made up for it. We produced farmer-friendly equipment, ensuring durability and ease of use with my expertise. Jessie never attempted to reconcile. Perhaps she convinced herself it was futile, and I had no interest in giving her another chance to mistreat me. I heard she bonded with other deceived wives and collectively petitioned to sever ties with the deceiver. The current wife received a photo album documenting his latest escapades. He lost his job, wife, and family. I had no desire to pursue him. Justice was in the hands of the irate farmers, if they ever found him. Jessie was furious when she discovered that I had sold the farm, fulfilling her long-standing desire. It seemed to drive her mad knowing that I had acted on her wishes without her involvement, depriving her of the benefits of her hard work during our time together. Meanwhile, the small startup I joined experienced exponential growth and eventually went public on its 5th anniversary, turning me into a millionaire overnight. The stock options I acquired ensured a comfortable retirement. However, Jessie's fortunes didn't improve. She struggled to shake off her tarnished reputation, and local businesses refused to give her opportunities to utilize her accounting degree. Eventually, she found herself working as a waitress at the same hotel bar where our relationship came to an end. Life moved forward, and I made efforts to embrace it. Despite Jessie's resentful glares as I dropped off the kids at her shared apartment, I embarked on a 7-night singles cruise in the Eastern Caribbean. Tired of being primarily a single parent, I sought the company of a companion, preferably a female one. My personal life was finally back on track, and I was ready for the next chapter. Standing on the top deck during our sail-away party, I noticed a woman with honey blonde hair waving in the wind. She gave me a sly, flirtatious smile while raising her champagne glass in acknowledgement. Returning her smile, I approached her, reflecting on how far I had come from my farming roots. It was indeed a satisfying realization. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.